Hey there, Maureen here, founder of the Mindsight Academy, neuro coach to executives, leaders, entrepreneurs, and a neuro leadership trainer using insights from neuroscience to help you deliver results by learning to work smarter, be in control of your brain, manage yours and others' emotions, change behaviors, flourish, and exceed expectations. Welcome back to another episode of Lead to Excel podcast. I am so thrilled to be with you today because we have a special guest. But before we get into that, remember to subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to it, because it will help other people find it and give them the opportunity to understand how they can rewire their own brain to enable them achieve their goals. So without wasting any more time, grab your cup of coffee or your drink or whatever that might be. Put your feet up and listen in. So welcome to another episode of Lead to Excel podcast. And today I'm absolutely excited to have a great guest with us today. Fireball Deena, welcome to this podcast.
Thank you, Maureen. This is 2 for 1 for us today.
Exactly. Yes, because we met earlier today in a networking meeting, and we're going to be talking a bit about networking, actually. I'm so honored to really have you on. When I met you, you really do light up a room, and that is just saying it madly. So it's so good to have you. So can you please introduce yourself?
Of course, and welcome, audience. My name is Deena Fireball Baikowitz. I am the founder of Fireball Network. I am a business and career coach, and I focus on networking. And I'm also a comedian, so I bring comedy into my coaching to help people network more effectively, more confidently, with less stress, and a lot more laughter. And I also serve as a speaker, of course, and running workshops and private coaching, all to help people build strategic relationships for their businesses and their careers.
Thank you so much. And again, it's so good to have you here. So when I met you, I really was so intrigued and interested in what you do, because it's kind of a good variety there, but it also links so well with what I do, which always gets me excited. So in terms of the coaching and business and career coaching you do, can you just dig a bit more into what you actually do? So how do you help people, and what kind of people do you help?
That's a great question. And because there's so many different kinds of business coaches out there, there's leadership and executive, conflict, negotiation, right? There's so many aspects of a business or a career that we have to deal with. My specialty is people, is helping people connect with other people. And that comes from my background as a social worker and as a theater major and as a performer and as a businesswoman. So focusing on how do we build strategic relationships? Who do we need to connect with? And how do we show up and do that? Because people can lack confidence, right? It's scary to talk to strangers. I mean, not for me. That's my favorite thing in the world. Like, you put me in a room with 5,000 people, that's my happy place. And, I was joking earlier, I cannot wait to get back to conferences and spend 3 straight days with 5,000 people nonstop. But that's not the case for everyone. And introverts in particular struggle with networking because they think they have to network like extroverts, and they don't. We each, introverts, extroverts, ambiverts, I don't believe in labels for the sake of labeling. I use labels to help understand what drives somebody, what gives them energy, what drains them, so that we can give them the tools that suit their personality. And so when it comes to networking and self-promotion and getting on stage or hosting a podcast or being a guest on a podcast, what are those fears and insecurities that prevent us from moving forward, from grabbing opportunities? And there's 3 approaches. There's the intellectual, right? Intellectually, we may understand, okay, we need to meet people, but strategically, we're not sure who we need to meet, what the priorities are. We have a lot of other work to do. Then emotionally, there is that fear. And sometimes it's hard to articulate or really put a handle on, why am I nervous about meeting someone? Because it goes back to childhood and high school and things like that. And then on a practical level, what are the actions to take? How do you schedule? what do you actually do? What does follow-up look like? So those are the different approaches that I take with my clients.
Oh, that is awesome. Actually, you've really touched on really important points because, and I'll kind of move back a step because as business owners, as corporate people, whoever you are, networking is so important, but it's one area, one aspect that a lot of people shy away from. So why? Okay, let's look at it because I deal with leadership. Why do people in corporate need to network? Because business people, they need it anyway, and they know that. But why do people in corporate need to network?
Right, because you and I are business owners, we're consultants, we're always looking for clients and opportunities. We have to hustle. It's the hustle.
Exactly.
Salespeople who work for corporations know how to network because they are sales. But as you said, a lot of people within companies, employees, whatever level they're at, think, well, LinkedIn is only if you're looking for a job, or you only network if you're out of work. And that's so untrue. And pretty much anyone who is at any mid to high level in a company, you can't get to the top without having the skills, without knowing how to build relationships. Why it matters? It matters to have a support system around you. No one succeeds alone. And I tell everyone, whatever their business or career, create your own board of directors. Don't just rely on your boss or your boss's boss or your peers. Those are important parts of your network, but have your own. Because at the end of the day, your career is your career. It doesn't belong to the company you work for. And so having people that you can trust, that you can go to for advice and support outside different perspectives, right? You don't want to surround yourself with people who think just like you do. Like 10 creatives in a room will be creative, but then they need an operations person and maybe a strategist in there. Also, for your career growth, quite simply, you want to get promoted, you need to make allies in other departments. People need to know who you are. And how are they going to learn about your work? Reading about it in a company newsletter or an annual report or an investor's report, that's not how we remember people. If you drop into their office when we're back in offices, or if you send them an email or set up a check-in phone call, getting to build personal and professional relationships is how you can see and be seen and get the help you need. And just as importantly, how you can serve others. Because I do believe we all generally care about helping others and paying it forward and mentoring. And I do tell people, like, as much as you need help with something, someone else needs help with something. You have advice that can benefit someone else. And so it becomes that wonderful loop and community of pay it forward. And just building community is critical so that you're not alone. And this comes from my background as a social worker. There's an expression we use: the people who are the most isolated are the most at risk. And that is equally true in the business world. So if I want to do business with someone, if I want to hire someone, if I want to bring them into a program, if I want to promote them, I'm going to look at who has a rich network, who has a diverse network, who has gotten out there and is learning about other industries versus someone who just puts their head down, sticks to their own department, and only knows what they know in their narrow scope of vision.
Thank you so much. You actually touched on quite a lot of points, which are so important. It comes down to that people connecting with other people. And that's what it's all about. And it excites me because when you really look at how the brain works, the brain is a social organ. So you really need to connect with people to really get the most out of for yourself and for others as well. So I really loved how you touched on the different aspects. In terms of networking, coming back to why it matters, because a lot of times what people struggle with is, how do I even start? For business owners, for employees or managers in organizations, or people who already have their sight on progressing in their career. How do I start? What do you tell people like that?
Oh, you have great questions. And every time I answer, I'm like, I think I'm going off on tangents, but Maureen will figure it out. Because we spoke this morning, right? And that was just a beautiful coincidence. We ended up at the New York Elevate. network event and had this wonderful conversation. And I got to know about your background and you got to know about mine and the others in the room. So the starting, it really is just start. I mean, people have to think of if someone isn't networking, what's stopping them? If the question is time, you have to make time. Networking is not a soft skill. It's a critical skill. Communication skills, negotiation skills, right? Public speaking and presentation skills. These aren't soft. They're hardcore important for your career. And that's why I love using the term critical career skills. So I would say, you know what, you start with your goal, right? That in any coaching program, in anything, any project that you're doing, what is the goal of the project? What is the goal for you in your career? And at that particular stage. So for example, let's say someone's mid-level and they want to get promoted. They want to take on more responsibility. They may want to branch out into a different division. Maybe they're coming from operations and they want to get more into the executive. So based on that goal, who do you need to connect with? What do you need to learn about? Operations, I'm not great with operations analogies because I suck at structures and systems. Not suck. It's not my strong suit. I believe in systems and organization and efficiency, but and knowing yourself is also critical. So yeah. I am a creative, first and foremost. My brain is always moving in different directions and making connections. And so I surround myself with people who are operations experts, who can put together a plan and a program in 10 minutes that would have taken me 2 weeks and a lot of tears and aggravation. And so bringing together different strengths and different skill sets, that's also what networking is about. Think of what kind of team do I want around me? So think of your goal. Who do you need to meet to achieve that goal? So if it is to get outside perspectives, it's almost like a menu, right? I'll have one of those and one of those and one of those. I need someone who's good at structures and logistics. I need someone who's good at marketing. I need someone who's good with people, someone who's good with teaching. And you bring them in as your advisors. Also, you have to go, you have to show up. You have to go to events, join associations. Finding the right association can take time. I do say there's no instant gratification in networking, except for the instant gratification of we had an amazing phone call this morning. That was instant gratification. That was stronger than my coffee and it was wonderful. The long-term results are long-term. So to start, know your goal, figure out who you need to meet, put yourself out there, get yourself in front of people, and also work on your brand. So your LinkedIn profile, the bio on your company website, any other social media that you show up on. If someone is already a member of an organization, let's say it's the New York State Bar Association, who I've done programs for, what does your bio say there? Our Elevate Network directory has a lot of room and a lot of cool categories that you can really highlight yourself and spotlight yourself as a member. Are the members taking advantage of that? That's part of networking. There's active and passive networking.
Oh, wow. That is amazing. That is amazing. And I love what you said. It's a critical career skill. That is so true. It is so critical to be able to network and network effectively. And I love the way you started it by just saying, just start. And another important thing you mentioned there was your goal. When you're networking, what do you want to get out of it? And I think this is so important because a lot of people network but don't actually have a reason, a purpose, or have that goal of why they're doing it. And having that goal in mind is actually so important because it then helps you to know who are you looking for in that room or what are you going to do? Yeah, you want to say something, go for it.
No, I'm agreeing with you because when you show up, it's like, why are you here?
Yeah.
And if there are 10 people in a Zoom room or 20 people, and there's hundreds of thousands, millions of people on LinkedIn, where do you put your time and your energy and your focus? And that will, and that is one of the things my clients say to me. It's like, I don't know who to follow up with, or what's the reason for talking to this person? What do I say to her? Why do I want to reach out? And I said, that's a good question. If your goal is, for example, you're looking for clients, I'm looking for clients. Who are our client avatars? So I work with lawyers. I coach a lot of lawyers. I coach a lot of women. women business owners in particular. I go into companies and coach their young associates. So let's just take those three avatars: lawyers, young associates, and women. So I'll look for the lawyers in the room or somebody who works with lawyers. And that, as another example, commercial real estate, architects, engineers, construction, development, lawyers. You have to focus when you go in that room and say, well, if there's 1,000 people in this room, I don't need to network with this person, but these are the people that I can help and can be a source or a referral source. And it's also, it's a balance. Like there's all these ideas and this is where it gets complicated, and having a structure is really helpful. And so with my clients, I have modules, and I have the 21-day networking challenge, which is very specific, precise, and simple and quick exercises once a day, 5 to 15 minutes a day, of who do you need to meet? Where do you find them? And think about that. For some people, their ideal contact, because it may not be a client, as you said, within corporations that you advise and you work with, look at the different departments in your company. Do you want to get to know the tech division or the CPG division or marketing? And then say, oh, yes, I want to meet people in marketing because I want to learn XYZ. What is it you want to learn? What is it that maybe you're looking for a position on a committee? So who runs committees? Who's the committee leadership? Like that's a really direct and easy way to network, is saying, I want to get onto a committee. I want to serve. I want to learn a new skill or use the skills I already have and volunteer. Who is in charge? Who makes those decisions? Those are the people you network with. And when you go into a room, you go with that mindset. Now, different rooms can have different purposes. You don't have to have the same goal in each room. I mean, sometimes I will go into a room just to meet interesting people with no goal. And my goal is just to be completely open and enjoy myself because I love meeting new people. Other times this is a room full of lawyers. I'm going to get a client out of this. Yeah. It's not crass. And that's the other thing. People think it's sleazy. Networking is more about giving than getting. I believe it's equal. And giving can be as simple as, I just gave someone some free advice that they found useful, and I made their day, and it gave me a chance to work through an idea and be of service. That's wonderful. I'm also there as a business owner to build relationships that are mutually beneficial. Yeah. Right? Because if we didn't have to network for business, we'd be hanging out with our friends. We wouldn't need to record this. We wouldn't need to market it. We wouldn't need to produce it. I wouldn't have had to put on all the makeup and change my clothes. True. We'd just be hanging out with our friends. But the beauty of networking is that you get to combine business with pleasure. Absolutely. And you and I get to build this relationship. The first time we spoke, I said, I cannot wait until I can come to England and visit you. Yes. Right?
I can't wait to come to Toronto to visit you.
Anytime, as soon as the flights are flying. Yeah. That's what networking is. It's really about building relationships. And it is complicated and it can get messy. And it's also as simple as building a relationship.
Yeah. Oh, wow. A lot of nuggets that you've dropped there. It's so many. And it's so, I'm just so excited because it's one area that a lot of people struggle with. But I think you've given us a lot to really think about in terms of networking and forming those relationships and why they're important. I'm going to take us slightly differently on a different path now. Fireball. What is that? Why are you called Fireball Deena? Actually, you know what? When I saw your name on the first networking meeting we had, and then I looked at it and I went, oh, this is interesting. And then suddenly you were talking about arranging a dance class. And I'm going, wow, I love her so much. So please tell me, how did it come about? I know it probably is a long story, but just as short as you can.
I'll give the quick version. And some people ask that question and some people don't. And the reason I'm so glad that you're asking it's because my boss, one of my favorite bosses of all time, and she was one of my favorite bosses because she gave me as much freedom as I wanted and as much support as I needed to build a program pretty much from the ground up and make changes and create programming for patients and their families. And I worked for her as a consultant. So she was recommending me for another consulting job. And I walked into the guy's office. He said, I got the most unusual job recommendation I've ever received. And he looks at his computer, looks at me and says, and reads it out loud. She's a little fireball of energy. Hire her. I got the job. And that woman, Pam Georges, is British. She's from outside London, in Montreal. When I was,
wow!
We became friends. Like, I remember going to the Irish pub with her and her husband, who, not the Navy, but British boat, something about boats. And the most wonderful man. Like, she was my boss, and she became my friend. Yeah. And the name stuck with me. And then all the years later, when I decided I was going to start my own company, I thought, well, I don't want to name it Deena, like that. It's not DBA or doing business as, and I don't have a middle name. And I thought Fireball has an energy and network because it's about bringing people together.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is so, thanks for sharing that. And that is so true. And that Fireball really represents you, because every time I've spoken to you or been in a room with you, the energy there rises. It really is amazing. So I'm so pleased to have met you. Now, we're coming to the end of the podcast. Can you just tell our viewers about your programs? Because I know you run different programs to help people in terms of their business, their branding, networking, mindset, and all that. So can you just mention the programs that you run?
And I have different programs. And of course, depending on when someone's listening to this, they're going to want to check out the website, fireballnetwork.com, because there will always be new programs. I am launching my signature 21-day networking challenge this April. I'm launching digital courses in June or July. And the programs I have right now as well are a shot of Fireball, which is an intense coaching session. I have a blast of Fireball, which is 6 modules. And then the VIP Fireball, which is a custom program. And I have keynote speeches that I deliver and workshops and special events. But I also believe that whatever business you're in and whatever company you work for, changing things up and trying new things and bringing in your passions and getting outside advice. Like what I did with my business, how I coached 10 years ago is not the same as what I do now. And I think one of the most important, and for me, the most meaningful things that I did with my business was to embrace comedy. Because I've always been funny. It's been part of my brand, but it was just, Deena's fun to work with. She cracks a joke. She's humorous. Comedy and theater and dance was separate from the business. It was my passion, my fun. And then I started doing stand-up comedy a few years ago. It'll actually be 3 years this summer. And very slowly I would put it into my bio description. I had amateur comedian. And at one point I just said, take the word amateur out, because I'd earned my first actual money from doing a comedy show online, like $4.66. Yay!
Well, it's
I can quit coaching. But technically, if you get paid, you're pro. It wasn't even
exactly
money, but I was like, no, I love bringing comedy into my coaching, and I love making my clients laugh, and it helps with the emotional intelligence, right? Breaking through fears and building connection. And so embracing the comedy as part of my brand, which is something I love and helps my clients. And I actually co-produced my very first online comedy fundraiser last year. And I brought in co-producers and operations experts and creative directors. And that's become a really important part of my brand and my business going forward, is that I bring comedy into coaching.
Oh God, you know what? We're almost at the end, but I have to pick up on that point. Bringing comedy into coaching. How do you do that? I know you touched on it briefly now, but I think I want us to go a bit deeper, because it's unusual and it's really, really important in terms of helping people in different ways. One, helping them relax, helping to shift their brain as well from that hypersensitive place or emotional, highly charged, shifting it to the conscious brain. So can you just talk a bit about how you use coaching? How you use comedy in coaching? Yeah.
I will. And I think you and I should talk again, because getting into the science of it, like I would love to write an article together or do a video on the brain science and what happens when we laugh, and the different types of, there's cathartic laughter is a type of laughter. People are using humor in therapeutic situations. I created a humor therapy program when I worked in nursing homes, which pretty much consisted of telling dirty jokes to old people, and that first staffer like, you can't do that. I'm like, these people are in their 80s. There's no way I'm going to say something they don't already know. Like we could learn from them,
Exactly.
But it's part of that. It's embracing what's human, right? People are worried. Like, I'm super, super short. I'm 4'6¾". And growing up, I was very insecure about that. And I was picked on. And then I turned that around. And when I poke gentle fun, self-deprecating, just, the little, like something little, haha, about my height, everyone else relaxes. And because everyone has something that they're uncomfortable about or that they feel makes them different. And it's our differences that actually make us the same. There's an expression like you are unique, just like everybody else.
Exactly.
And so finding ways to look at situations like, I say it's networking. It's not rocket surgery. And I use that term, right? It's not actually rocket science. It's not brain surgery. You're talking to like networking gone wrong. Like what's the worst that could happen? Someone's going to sue you because your conversation starter was boring.
Exactly.
Like they may walk away, but and people worry about icebreakers. Like what's the best icebreaker? I'm like, who cares? Like no one I say this is a networking coach. Like no one remembers the very first thing you said to them. They may remember that you made them laugh, that you made them smile, that you made them feel welcome. So for me, using comedy to help people relax, to gently work through some of maybe their insecurities or issues, or just in general, like what is so scary about a networking event? What is terrifying about losing your job or not getting the promotion you want? I use dating and networking analogies all the time because it's relationships, right? Like people are funny. And it's hard for me to, a lot of times it's in the moment. It's, like I do a lot of crowd work in my comedy. But I make fun of extroverts and introverts because I'm actually not making fun of them. I'm celebrating it. So let's take the fact that we're worried about people making fun of us or being rejected or thinking we're not good enough. Or tall enough. Like I'm not tall enough for some things, but it doesn't matter in the business world. Actually an asset. And take all those misconceptions and just say what really matters here. If we can laugh together, we have a good chance of hopefully doing business together, or at least having another conversation to figure out.
Oh, I love that. And we definitely have to do something together because as you're talking about it, my brain is firing and going, this is really interesting because when you bring in humor into that, for example, because a lot of times, like you said, a typical example, someone that is worried about saying the wrong thing or worried about how they would look when they give a presentation. When you then bring the humor and or turn it around or reframe it in terms of what's the worst that can happen, it's actually rewiring the brain. So as much as you're having these neurotransmitters released, the actual process, the wiring in the brain is changing, and the person's focus moves away from that whole negative or threat that the brain has created, and it then becomes a reality. Because you see, a lot of the fear that people perceive is actually a perceived fear. It's not real. It's not a fact. So I love that, how, I want to really know more, actually. And we might even do another podcast just on this. Yeah. So I can't go on for too long, but I'm just so excited. So yes, thank you so much. And I've got one more question to ask you. What advice or what tip will you give our listeners? One last word of advice that you give them to take away with.
Talk to strangers. You never know. You never know how the next person you meet might change your life or how you might change theirs.
I love that. I love that.
Pick up the phone. Use that. Schedule the Zoom call. Go to an online networking event. Just connect. Wonderful things can happen. And the worst thing that can happen is if you spend 10, 15, 20 minutes with someone and it doesn't go anywhere, it's 10, 15, 20 minutes of your life. No big deal. Exactly. But more often than not, you're going to learn something. You may inspire somebody else. Yeah. And best of all, you're going to make new friends.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. That is powerful. Thank you.
Thank you,
Now,
Maureen.
where can our listeners find you? I know you're on LinkedIn. So if you just tell us quickly, I'm going to put it all in the description,
Okay.
but if you just say it so they know where to find you,
So
your website.
the other side, fireballnetwork.com.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Deena Baikowitz on LinkedIn, and on all the social medias, I am Fireball Deena on Instagram and TikTok and Clubhouse and Twitter. Fireball Deena.
Awesome. We cannot forget Fireball Deena. Fireball Deena, thank you so much for coming on to Lead to Excel podcast. And I look forward to having you again on this podcast because I don't think this will be the last.
No,
Thank you
we're going to
much.
talk again.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Maureen. This was wonderful. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you once again for tuning in. And remember that if you haven't subscribed to this podcast, click on the button wherever you listen to it so that you don't miss an episode. And I would really appreciate you leaving a review as well, or even a comment on the podcast, or ideas of topics that you want me to talk about in future. I've got some exciting episodes coming up with some interesting guests that you really wouldn't want to miss. So in this climate, wherever you are, do remember to keep safe, look after yourself, and I truly wish you perfect health. Stay limitless, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Bye for now.